So we are about a month away from Season 2, and at Comic-Con a new nearly 4-minute trailer dropped for the show. So let's first go through it, and then maybe we'll give some thoughts.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
The trailer begins as Halbrand Sauron is surely leaving Eregion from Season 1, as of course he isn't blonde yet here. And then we see the Elven rings falling to the ground, seeing Galadriel's Nenya and Gil-galad's Vilya. From here we see a crown. This is likely to be Sauron's, as we have previously seen hinted at before. As we have heard, we will see some of his other forms as well. So maybe this is back from an earlier point, more likely being from some kind of flashback. From here, back to Nenya falling to who appears to be Galadriel at her feet. With this then giving us a glimpse of Durin wearing his Ring of Power too. At this point, it very much seems that Sauron has been working fast. Then we get to see Adar. My guess is this part links in with the crown scene we got a moment ago, so this is going to be linked with that. Perhaps he is seeing this crown appear, or he is at the moment of thinking, actually, this crown should be mine, Sauron is not worthy. Who knows? This is where we then go back to see Lindon, far less golden than we did see it in Season 1, where that decay has been happening far more. All this has happened very quick, as we're also getting a voiceover from Galadriel saying, he seeks to rule it not only through conquest, but bending the minds of all its people to his own. And for this, he needs not armies, but rings. So this of course implies she is telling everyone who Halbrand really is, what happened to her in Season 1, and from then on perhaps making even less sense after the warning, she puts on Nenya. Obviously trailers can be cut in strange ways, it's not going to be in the same order that it shows here, but this really doesn't seem like the smartest move. How can you go from warning everyone that Sauron needs these rings to bend everyone's minds to his own will? He needs these rings to win. So what should we do? Let's put on the rings that he helped create. I mean, it doesn't make the most sense, does it? But saying that, we now see the tree healed, with Galadriel, Gil-galad and presumably Círdan wearing the 3 rings of power. They have most likely used them to heal and preserve, like the rings are said to be able to do in the lore, and helped heal the kingdom, perhaps fooling them into thinking it is a good idea. From here we see Elrond and Galadriel off on some mission, with Galadriel claiming the ring might be guiding her. We get a little bit of that whispery speech we get from the Peter Jackson movies behind it, kind of hinting that this ring is perhaps evil as well, which again doesn't make sense where she's wearing it after her warning that came earlier. Now technically the One Ring hasn't been made here, and although it shouldn't have been made here by any stretch, we can't rule it out either, as the Forging Order has already been messed up. So although they should be safe using these rings, it could very much feel like they're teasing the same kind of seductive pull that the One Ring gives off, which again feels slightly odd at this time. Back to Halbrand though, with my guess again this being the beginning of the season, going with that opening shot of this trailer, all showing Halbrand leaving Eregion at the very beginning after his confrontation with Galadriel. We then get a hint of a Halbrand and Celebrimbor meeting again, without him having his blonde locks. So is this more of a flashback, or is Celebrimbor just that foolish? I feel there has to be more to this than meets the eye, but we just don't know. Now we witness the Barrow Wights. I have said my thoughts on them being included before, it doesn't make sense timeline wise, but we also know that that is out the window with this show anyway. So all I can really say at this stage is at least they look pretty damn awesome. They look like Barrow Wights should look, and hopefully it can make some sense on how they are actually existing here and why they are being included in the show. And now back to Celebrimbor and Halbrand again. It appears Halbrand walks out of the forge in his now new blonde Anatar guise. So perhaps he did in fact walk back into Eregion without even attempting to change his appearance first. Or maybe instead, this is some kind of vision Celebrimbor gets where he is being told by some higher power to look out for the sharer of gifts. Not Lord of Gifts, sharer of gifts. Again, with all this stuff, I may be trying to give the writers more credit than they're due, if season 1 is anything to go by of course, but sometimes a false hope is what we go by. This is where we appear to go out to the east for the stranger, not Gandalf, side of the story. This all feels very Harrod or Easterling in terms of aesthetic, so maybe these people in masks could be Second Age Easterlings, even giving us an introduction to a possible Camor the Easterling in the show too. With this we get some witches type ceremony. What they're doing exactly isn't too clear, but it very much appears like a staff-like object is appearing out of the centre. Is this going to be the main enemy for the stranger in this season? Are we going to see Tom Bombadil fight some kind of shaman? Only time will tell. From here, as I've kind of hinted at now, probably my least favourite part of the trailer, a look at serious Tom Bombadil. Although I will come back to this more in a moment, because we do also see Ar-Pharazôn beginning to use one of the Palantir, most likely giving him some kind of visions to inspire his later decisions. That little glimpse of fire shows that perhaps someone evil also has access to one, or this is just visions of the horror that comes later. We then get a cut between Annatar Halbrand seeing a Balrog in some flames, to a big Balrog appearing to jump and fall, feeling this has to be in Khazad-dûm. Now, does this mean Annatar himself has gone to give Durin his ring personally? Perhaps it does, and he has kickstarted the realm's destruction by doing so. With this, we get the Durins in an argument over the ring, as perhaps Durin didn't trust this messenger that handed over the ring itself, but his father is already under the influence, so is not willing to listen. We then get some faster shots with a good look at Miriel again, then back to the stranger and Bombadil, again with Bombadil seeming oh so serious. This is not the Tom Bombadil Tolkien wrote, but then again many of the characters in this show are not the ones Tolkien wrote at all, so all we can do with this is wait and see how he truly comes across in the show. I, for one, have very little hope for what this character does in this series though. This is where we come back to Adar and the crown, where he appears to stab someone with it. Is this Sauron, a random prisoner, one of his own people, one of his own orcs, or could it well be a flashback to when he believed he killed Sauron? It's not quite clear at all, and it could perhaps be far less impactful than the trailer's making out. From this we get what appears to be the attack on Eregion, with Elrond now in full battle mode. Linking in with other lines in the trailer of Durin saying about helping their friends, there is a good chance we are going to get them fighting alongside each other at some point. And how would you willing to bet we get some kind of line between them about a kill count from the battle, or about the size of something they kill still only counting as one? We then get a glimpse of an Entwife, and who wants to bet this is going to be Treebeard's long lost wife, Finbrethil. As the trailer continues, we get our first glimpse of Na'vi the dwarf as well. Now, for those of you who do not know who this dwarf was the one who created the famous Doors of Durin with the help of a certain Celebrimbor. My thoughts on the way this plays out is perhaps Celebrimbor creates these other rings of power and ends up needing to pretty much redeem himself in some way after realizing what he has done. So perhaps helping this dwarf will be a way in trying to rebuild his reputation. Now, of course, I'm not saying this is how it will play out in the show, but timeline-wise and Celebrimbor with Halbrand is quite hard to add in a side story with Na'vi at the same time, so I feel like this will have to come afterwards. Maybe even this is done as an idea of when Elrond is eventually going to need to retreat, they're going to need a new way out of Khazad-dûm, a faster route, and Celebrimbor is going to help create this. Then from here we get our first glimpse of Isildur in the trailer as well, where he is fighting off what are surely the spawns of Shelob. We've had confirmation Shelob will be in the season, and this spider is of course too small to be Shelob, so one of her spawns seems the obvious choice. As well as from here, we get several more action shots of an Entwife, the Siege, Arondir, Celebrimbor looking dishevelled, and an eagle landing in Númenor that we had in the teaser before. Then, back to Celebrimbor, and you have Annatar demanding the Nine, which we can assume is what Celebrimbor just tried to destroy moments before in the trailer. Meaning, the 3 Elven rings were made first, then the 7 Dwarven rings, as Durin already has his, and now finally the 9 for the men. We are then back to the action shots, seeing a troll, Galadriel, Elrond, chargers, orcs, and someone who appears to be stuck in a cage as they charge, with that then ending the trailer itself. So, what did you make of all of that? There are bound to be things I have missed to start with, so any little details you've picked up on, please comment them down below. Firstly, I do just have to get my couple of gripes out of the way. As I've already mentioned it, what have they done to Tom Bombadil? This is either a massive bait and switch with how this character appears, or they have hit so far wide of the mark that he has almost become a grumpy blue wizard. Supposedly he does actually sing in the season, but they've shown no hints at actually getting the character right of Tolkien's great enigma yet. Next, let's think about the rings. It really does feel the whole thing of having created the rings out of order is really making what comes now all the more difficult to get right. It is so hard to believe Celebrimbor would let Halbrand come back after everything they now know. Or, if doesn't know what has really happened, then it's even more stupid they wouldn't have given him this information as he was the one working so closely with Halbrand. So it very much feels like a lose-lose situation here with these characters, and it will really struggle to make any true sense or have any realistic thought process behind the actions of these characters. And with that, regardless of all of that, how on earth Celebrimbor gets fooled again later in any way, shape or form is anybody's guess. I do not feel there is any way they can pull this off, and Celebrimbor not look like anything more than a complete and utter fool. And then of course with most of the rest of the trailer, a lot of these shots are just the best of the best from the season to get everyone excited. There is no real context for any of these scenes, so we don't really know how it all plays out. But I'm not going to be 100% negative, as with all those things being said, it is not the worst trailer. If this was nothing to do with Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, I would probably look at this and go, yeah, this looks like a pretty good show that I might enjoy. But obviously for a lot of us here, the butchering they have done to the lore is what really makes things difficult. I'm really hoping they can bring it back a bit in season 2. Maybe there's some soft rewrites to try and redo a couple of things that have come before. Maybe some of these stories that were given are just made up, and there is in fact more lore accurate answers that actually fix what came earlier. And again, like with a lot of season 1, the visuals are great, you cannot deny it. The orcs, the armor, the battles, they all look phenomenal here, and you can't argue otherwise. So I am by no means sold on it, but if this trailer is anything to go by, this season should at least be an improvement. And at the end of the day, we are all fans of Tolkien's work. If we can end up with enjoyable Tolkien content, even if the path to get there wasn't the cleanest, it may not be the worst thing. Obviously, I know people would like to say scrap the entire thing, start again with something good, but realistically we have to accept, especially with the amount of money Amazon have put into things, that is not going to happen, and we are pretty much stuck with what we get. So can they perhaps steer it back to being a bit more accurate? I might cross my fingers, but at the end of the day, I won't be holding my breath on being in any way, shape or form blown away either. And so with that, I'd like to hear from all of you now. What little bits have I missed from the trailer? What are your thoughts on it all? Are you feeling in any way better or worse about the season after seeing this trailer released? I'd really love to hear from you all. And with that, thank you for sticking around with me to the very end of this video today. I hope you enjoyed it, but if you didn't, thank you for sticking around anyway. And with that, I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.